Hey guys, my name is Batsimio, and today I want to take a look at the support class for Battlefield 1 because DICE is going to be changing some things around. First of all, there's going to be way more of an emphasis on using the bipod. This really isn't the case in previous Battlefield games. The more recent ones, like Battlefield 3 and 4, you basically use an LMG, it functions pretty much exactly like an assault rifle with more ammo and maybe a little bit more recoil that you have to compensate for, and that's about it. Sure, you can use a bipod to make it a little bit more accurate, but in general, it's not necessary to hunker down in one location and play that supportive role. And so in general, assault and support play very similarly, other than the fact that they have slightly different gadgets and their weapons have a little bit different qualities to them, but that's about it. Some people might slightly disagree with this, but in general, you play as assault and you play as a support class, there isn't a whole lot that you need to do to change your playstyle. That seems to be changing with Battlefield 1 because of some of the weapons and the way that they perform. The Lewis gun, for example, has an excessive amount of bullet spread to it. Even if your target is at a medium distance, a good 20 to 30 meters away, it doesn't matter how much you're tap firing, it doesn't matter how much you're compensating for the recoil, because this gun just has that much bullet spread to it, you're gonna have a very, very hard time coming to that firefight alive. The only reliable way that you're gonna be able to win these engagements is to either be up close and personal, where the bullet spread isn't gonna be an issue at all, or you need to deploy the bipod. As soon as you start to use the bipod, it becomes a laser beam, even at medium to long range. I was having no problem sniping people at a long distance as soon as I started to use this gun appropriately. Now, sadly, I don't have any gameplay to show off the bipod in action because for the first half of the recording session, which I'm able to show you guys today, I was running around like I normally would in every Battlefield game when I was playing as a support class. Like I mentioned, there just isn't a lot to differentiate between the assault rifles and the LMGs in previous Battlefield games, and so I just kind of assumed that was going to be the same case for Battlefield 1. As soon as I started to use that bipod though, it really opened up my eyes to what DICE was trying to achieve with this class, because as soon as you play it properly and you're using the bipod, it is a completely different playstyle, a different role than we're used to, and I really respect that. You're gonna wanna be defensive. You're gonna wanna play as support. I know how crazy that might sound, but you're actually gonna have to play that supportive role when you are using this kit, and I really, really like that they're trying to put more of an emphasis on that type of role. Now, I know some people might be a little turned off by this because for some reason, camping in video games is a naughty word, and as soon as you camp in a building, you play defensive, you're a noob and you have no idea what you're doing. But as soon as you look past that argument and you realize it's actually a valid tactic, and if you're defending objectives, it's actually very beneficial to your team, it opens up way more possibilities. Now, the one critique that I have for it really doesn't have to do with the support class in general, it has to do with the way that they've allocated points in the alpha. One thing that I really like about Battlefield 1 is that they're putting more of an emphasis on playing the objective. If you are not going for these capture points, there is no way that you're reaching the top of the scoreboard. If you're simply going for kills, yeah, you may go 20-1, but it doesn't matter because you're gonna be at the middle of the road or even maybe down on the very bottom of the scoreboard, because that is how many points that you get for capturing, reviving, and giving out health and ammo to your teammates. They're really trying to get people to actually play the objective and make this more of a team-oriented game, which I really respect. Now, my one critique with it isn't the fact that you're getting a lot of points for capturing the objective. My one critique is that they're not giving you enough points, at least in my opinion, for defending the objective. You get like 800 points for capping a flag in Conquest. It's incredible, but when you get a kill on defense, you only get 25 bonus points. That seems like a pretty big difference between offense and defense. And so the suggestion that I have is not to do anything to the offensive point value. I love that there is that big reward after you do capture an objective. It would just be nice if there was a little bit more in the point value department for people that are playing defensive. It's a small critique, I know, it's nothing big, but it would be nice if DICE addressed this before the game went live. In general though, I really like what DICE is trying to accomplish with the support class and with the bipods. If you're not aware, the bipods are also a lot easier to use in Battlefield 1. You don't have to go through a lengthy animation like you had to do in previous Battlefield games. You don't even really necessarily need to be stationary. You can move around a little bit. Basically, if you go up to any windowsill, any ledge, or if you go prone on the ground, you automatically get that bonus if you have a bipod on your weapon, and you're going to be able to have that accuracy. And while you are going to be less mobile than other kits out there, it doesn't mean that you're going to be in one spot the entire game just defending from one location. Suppression. I really wish I could show the gameplay that I captured later on. It's under embargo, sadly, but I have these incredible moments where I'm bipoded up, I'm providing cover fire, I'm just mowing down the enemy on this map from an elevated position in one of the buildings, and it feels incredible. Like, it's incredibly fun, and I'm really interested to see how this is all gonna play out when more people get their hands on these weapons. Another thing I found very interesting is the way that they're handling the Claymore system. Now, of course, they're not called Claymores because they haven't been invented yet, but when you are using this gadget, it doesn't do the full 100 damage like we're used to anymore, where if you pass by it, it will just outright kill you. It will only do, I believe, 99. Now, what I love about this is that it means that if you're at 100% health, which may not happen very often, one thing that I did notice is that if you are not getting a med bag or if you're not getting healed by a medic, it takes you a really long time to regenerate your health. I think this is another reason why, or another way that DICE is trying to incentivize team play, is that they're trying to get more people to use med bags and be reliant on their medics, which I like, but if you don't have a med bag and you took some damage, it's gonna take you a while to get back to 100 health. And so if you're running around and you just took some fire, you're gonna be very vulnerable. If you are at 100 health though, you're thankfully not gonna die to this goddamn contraption. I've never really been a fan of Claymores or anything like that in any other first-person shooter. I just don't like the concept. And while I know in past Battlefield games, they do a reasonable job of letting you know where Claymores are, it always feels cheap and annoying when you die to them. And so while they're still gonna be effective, there's still gonna be a great warning system. If you're hunkered down in a building and you're being defensive and one of these things go off, you know that the person that you're gonna fight against isn't gonna have a lot of health, but at least it gives them a fighting chance. It doesn't just outright kill them, and so I really appreciate that DICE has taken this necessary step to reduce some of the annoyance that is associated with these gadgets. One thing I'm really curious to learn about, though, is the way that they're going to be handling the suppression effects. Now, I'm almost 100% positive that there is suppression in this game, because there was a lot of moments where I was running around, and I don't know if it was just because tanks were firing at me, I don't know if it was because of bullets, but there was some sort of suppression that was happening on my screen. Now, what I don't know about is if it's gonna have any bullet deviation or more recoil like we've seen in past Battlefield games. A lot of people didn't really like the suppression effect back in Battlefield 3 and in Battlefield 4 because it always rewarded the person who shot first. If you had terrible accuracy, it didn't really matter if you were bad, because then the person that you were shooting at, because the first couple of bullets may not have hit, but it caused the suppression effect, causing not only their screen to get blurry, but now they're having to deal with random bullet deviation, which we had back in Battlefield 3, which was incredibly frustrating, or with Battlefield 4, which was eventually changed, where we had more recoil. Now, the question is, how is DICE going to be approaching this with Battlefield 1? My gut is telling me is that hopefully they've learned their lessons from past Battlefield games, and it's only going to be a visual effect and not have all of the other baggage associated with it. That way, it still provides a little bit of cover fire. It's going to be harder for the enemy to identify where you're shooting from, so it does give you a slight advantage, but it's not going to be that overwhelming advantage like we saw in past games. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that if they do decide to add in a recoil component to suppression, then that, of course, is going to make the support class a hell of a lot better. If it's anything like past Battlefield games, where LMGs are inherently better at suppressing the enemy, if you see a bunch of enemies out in the distance and you're providing cover fire, you may not have been able to kill them yourself, but if they're behind a barrier, you can let your teammates know, hey, they're just over the bend there, go on in there with your submachine gun, I'll lay down some cover fire, they're gonna have to deal with more recoil, and that means that your teammate will be more likely to win that firefight. Like, that's really interesting conceptually. I just don't know if they're actually going to be adding that on in. In general, though, if you can't tell, I really like what DICE is doing with this kit. The small, subtle changes, while I realize aren't monumental, they are enough where it's clear that DICE is trying to make a different playstyle. They're trying to make it a little bit different and set it apart from all the other classes, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, guys, that's what it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Give me your thoughts on what I discussed in today's video. Do you like what they're doing with the bipod? Do you also like the new Claymore system? Let me know down below. But yeah, until tomorrow, have a good one, and take it easy.